Okay, we're gonna try this again. I was I I was having some technical difficulties with my audio. I hope you guys can hear me. If not, this is gonna not be an awesome live stream. But okay, we're gonna do this again. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the sanctuary. This is the place where typically in the sanctuary it's where Christians meet with God. The Bible is discussed, theology is discussed. This is the channel. My vision for the channel is I want to help you guys become the leaders that the world desperately needs you to be, and believe me, the world desperately needs you. We need leadership. So um, one of the ways that we function as leaders is sometimes we have to have some hard conversations. And this is going to be one of those times. So, lately, I don't know if you guys have noticed this at all, but lately I have noticed the level of Christian debates, the level of aggression, the level of snark, and even the level of disrespect has kind of skyrocketed as of late. And I thought we really need to ask the question, are we actually doing any good by doing this? And for those of you that are kind of new to the Christian YouTube space, so there is a context to all this, right? Like when I was so okay, let's just put it this way. So I'm not old, but I'm old enough to be able to remember. I can remember when the new atheists were actually new. Okay, like now, like Richard Dawkins, he's getting up there in age. Actually, some of the new atheists, they've actually died. Like that's how old the new atheists are getting. So I grew up in the '90s, and so any Christian that grew up in the '90s, the new atheists, they were a force to be reckoned with. They were tough debaters. At times, they were harsh debaters, and they were really aggressive. And they really gave this idea that we're atheists because we're smart, and you're religious because you're stupid. And for a long time, like the Christians would just get raked over the coals by these guys. But then slowly, some more intellectuals started making their appearance on the debate arena. People like William Lane Craig, like people with actual credentials before their name, like doctors, people with doctorates, this sort of thing. So they started coming up, and they would debate back, but they were intellectual, right? And so they weren't aggressive. They kind of tried to take the high road as much as they could. So this has been like 15 years, if not longer, of some of this stuff. And I've started to notice Christian people, or people that identify as Christian, they are starting to take the low road. They are starting to be more rude. They're being more crass. Um, Challenging people to fight, like this sort of thing. And so I thought, why don't we take a look at some of these debates, put it up against scripture, and ask the question, are we actually accomplishing what we want to accomplish? Because here's the reality, you guys. It is possible to be right and totally miss the point. And my fear is that if Christian apologetics, if Christian debates continue going in the trajectory that it's currently going, we're going to be in trouble. That's my fear. So um, we're going to look at two debates tonight. We're going to look at a recent debate that happened on JP Uncut's channel. And we are also going to look at a debate. I think it happened like a year ago between Matt Dillahunty and a believer. Let's go over and we'll take a look at a couple of these debates that recently transpired. Yeah, so this is Matt Dillahunty. He is a pretty well known atheist. He's a really strong debater. He is known for being kind of like that old school debater. You know, like if you cross him, you don't want to be on this guy's bad side because he will go for the jugular. He's aggressive. He can be rude, and he's not afraid to call a spade a spade. And so he went up against Andrew Wilson. And if you're not familiar with Andrew Wilson is I believe he's an Orthodox Christian. And he really goes at Matt in this debate. So let's take a look. I'll give some commentary, and then at the end, we'll take a look at the Bible and we'll see, like, should Christian debaters, should we be held to a higher standard? And so I'm just gonna totally like just give you a glimpse onto my cards. I think we should. I really think Christian debaters need to be held to a higher standard, because if we start acting like the pagans do, what are we accomplishing? And so, anyway, we're going to talk about it. So let's take a look at what Andrew Wilson has to say to Matt Dillahunty.
You're welcome. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Andrew Wilson. I am the host of the one and only Crucible, the fastest growing debate channel on the internet. James, I just in case you didn't know. Appreciate that very much. Appreciate everybody being here. All of you are way too stodgy in this room. Very low energy. Just wanted to let all of you know that. Ladies and gentlemen of all pronouns, the Z's, the Zers, the hims, and hers, I would like to thank you for tuning in today for this exciting in-person conference on modern day debate. My name is Andrew Wilson. There's a few ways this debate could go. The topic is Christian ethics versus secular humanism. Which has a better foundation? The funny thing is, I already won that topic because, as Matt explained to Jay Dyer, he has no justification under the skeptical belief structure to give an accounting for any meta-ethical presupposition he may have. He just kind of grants himself stuff. He grants himself logic, he grants himself reason, he grants himself an entire worldview, even though he's using an unjustified starting position for it. So I'm not honestly all that interested in doing the God not real dough debate, because one, it's boring, and two, it's also really boring. It goes like this. I don't see enough evidence and remain unconvinced there's a God. Then I say, but you use a theistic worldview of justification like there is a God to grant yourself logic and everything else. So instead of that, I'm just going to grant Matt's entire worldview. 2/3 or more of this entire planet are all operating inside of a shared delusion that they were created by a sky daddy who loves him some slavery and murderousness. He thinks it's funny to kind of cosmically with people. That's his deal, kind of his whole thing. That's Matt's worldview. So now Matt's right, and the question becomes, should we let them to continue to believe in this nonsensical Stone Age madness, or do we stop them from engaging in it? My contention is, even if God isn't real at all, that people acting as though he is still superior to whatever nonsensical egalitarian worldview Matt can come up with. See, Matt also just acts as though the things he believes are true. He believes, and therefore acts as though logic is real, math is real. Everything is real based on his presuppositional belief that they are real. You see, human...
Okay, so right out of the gate, you can see how demeaning Andrew Wilson is being. And, like, part of me, I get it, right? Like I totally understand the temptation, right? Because, like back in the day, atheists they came across as super arrogant. They were very demeaning. They would call people names. They would often insult them. Like, they would just flat out call the people they're debating stupid. And at times, like, unevolved, you know, like and they would really insult their intelligence. So part of me, like, I get it. I get that, like, there's a part of us, we want to just give them back what we've gotten. And so I totally get the temptation to do this. However, like, how do I say this pastorally? You kind of look like a jackass when you do that, right? Like that's just the reality. And so, anyways, before I say too much more, let's let Andrew Wilson talk.
Flourishing, the cornerstone of Matt's ideology and that of secular humanism, is totally meaningless. Flourishing by whose metric? From my perspective, for instance, attempting to lie to people who claim men can be women isn't human flourishing. From Matt's perspective, it is. Why? Why should the collective of humanity lie and say men can get pregnant? Why should they say that men can have periods? Things which are categorically and obviously false. That preserving homosexuality in society is good for human flourishing.
Okay, so now here's another thing too. Everything Andrew Wilson is saying right now is attacking Matt Dillahunty personally. He's not attacking his argument. He's attacking Matt Dillahunty personally. Why? Because Matt, at least I don't know if this is still going on, but at the time of this debate, Matt was in a relationship with I'm not totally sure. I'm gonna get this wrong, so please be kind with me in the comments about this. Matt was involved with a biological male that was either transitioning or was transitioned into a female. So when he's talking about the gender stuff, when he's talking about homosexuals, when he's talking about all this stuff, that's actually why Matt Dillahunty is smiling right now, because he knows this is a personal attack on him. And so, like, that's why he's kind of laughing and writing notes down and checking his phone and stuff like that. But what's the problem? Like, Andrew Wilson, he's not attacking, like, they're in a debate, right? What is the name of the debate? Christianity versus secular humanism, which has the best ethical foundation, right? So he's not talking about why Christianity is ethical right now. He is attacking his opponent. And in a debate, that's unprofessional. Whether or not you agree with the other person's lifestyle, that's not what they're debating. They're debating secular humanism versus Christian ethics, which has the best ethical foundation. And so like this is not good form. This is not a good thing.
Even though they are reproductive dead ends. And that Western society and egalitarianism is superior to those evil theist society, even though the Western nations can't even reproduce their own populations, but instead have to replace their population with foreigners from those theist nations that can reproduce. Let's start with a basic societal question recently asked of the West, who has now embraced a scientific and non-theistic approach to governing. Super basic question every kindergartner knows. If you don't believe me, go watch Kindergarten Cop. The question posed to the Western nation is, can a man be a woman? All right? To the question of if a man can be a woman, they say the answer is yes. And the way we will decree they can be a woman is by simply saying that woman now means male. Problem solved. Thank you, secular humanists. Thank you so much. Nope, not kidding. Why, you ask, would people be this over the top stupid? Well, it's simple. The good is the good, man. We have.
You notice the language, right? Like, he's calling people on the other side stupid. Like, and again, like, in a moderated debate, you're gonna be losing points for this, because the problem is that, like, the point to the debate is to convince the audience. That's how you win. You don't win merely by one-upping your opponent. You win by the audience. And the problem is when you act like this, right? Like when you present yourself as unlikable, like totally unlikable, you're not going to win the debate. And so, like, this is a problem.
Have to do what's good for human society and human flourishing. And if you don't call these deranged lunatics something they obviously aren't, they...
So now he's calling them deranged lunatics. Like, none of this is Christian. Like, none of it.
Might self-terminate, so in order to avoid that, we need to make everybody on planet Earth lie to them. This is human flourish. Just redefine shit, pretend it's true. How laughably absurd this worldview is. Matt will often say, I remain unconvinced. Well, Matt, I'm also going to use your standard. I need for you to 100% convince me beyond a shadow of a doubt that males can have babies. What's the answer going to be? No, and
here's the problem too. You using your opponent's previous tactics that don't work isn't going to help you, right? Like, again, the point to the debate is not to convince your opponent. That is not the goal. The goal is to convince the audience. The goal is to convince the people that are watching. And so even if you completely humiliate the person, that's not what wins you the debate. What wins you the debate is actually convincing the audience that your argument is superior to the other person's argument. And this is not going to happen if you continually demean people and you continually insult people.
Andrew, you big stupid. Males can't have babies. Men can have babies. Because we just defined man to include females, dummy. Well, Matt, I remain unconvinced. I'd like Matt to convince me that if you are a male and you are having sex with another male, which would not be allowed in my version of a secular humanist worldview, how is it that you're not just basically having sex with a guy with a wig on? I really want to know the answer to that question. Not just me, but all rational people who aren't lunatics also want to know why "it's ma'am" isn't a complete and total crock of garbage. Because I remain unconvinced that it isn't a total lie, and that these people don't just pervert the language to include their own perversions and then add human flourishing at the end. Matt has said he wouldn't make a law stopping 9-year-olds from having sex with each other. Not kidding. Now, I know this is going to sound a little bit totalitarian, but I would in fact create laws that made it a crime for a 9-year-old to have sex with their 9-year-old. I would hold the parents criminally liable for allowing this to happen in my evil authoritarian society, where I don't even let 9-year-olds have sex or the parents go straight to jail for negligence. Now, I think that's better for human flourishing. I think maybe parents would be far less likely to let their 9-year-olds do that if they went to jail. Stupid me. Next, I would in my authoritarian society decree that all simulated sex acts in public were criminal offenses and would make sure that all people went to prison for the crime of indecency, which doesn't assist with human flourishing, and I'd like to know why I'm wrong. Secular humanism can basically be whatever the hell you want it to be. It doesn't really need the principle of freedom or the starting axiom of freedom and peace in order to postulate whatever it wants. It's sloganeering. They're slogans. They don't mean anything. Okay, why do 9-year-olds need to be able to have sex in order to advance humanity? Why do we need to lie about a person's sex in order to advance humanity? Why are these things necessary for human flourishing? Why are decency laws bad? Why would Christian ethics stop flourishing when the theist mandate is to reproduce and the secular mandate is let's just all have sex and have fun, bro? That sounds way worse for human flourishing. In fact, I would say not reproducing is a worst possible thing for human flourishing, because if there's no humans, how do you flourish? So I guess, in essence, step 1, I remain unconvinced. Step 2, I need to be convinced, so I am no longer unconvinced. And step 3, but God not real dough doesn't matter here. I've already granted it to still demonstrate just how stupid this ideology actually is. With that, I'll yield my time, and I'm happy to get into it.
Hey, James, I just sent you a message.
All right. We are going to kick it into an open discussion, so 50 minutes, and let's kick it.
No, I don't think so. I'm not going to sit here and dignify the preparation that I went through and what people were here for.
You're so indignant.
Keep interrupting me.
I am.
Okay.
You're so indignant.
Would the moderator like to step in so that I can finish what I'm saying?
Please, Matt. Please. How dare someone have an opposing worldview?
I'm not going to sit here and dignify what was supposed to be a debate about Christianity versus secular humanism, which one's better for the world.
Yes.
With someone who clearly showed up with an agenda that has nothing to do with that.
I just like
someone who refers to trans people.
Like, look at Andrew, like he's laughing. Why is he laughing? Right? Like this isn't funny. Like, you are representing Christ live in front of thousands of people, and you're acting like a child. And the problem is, when you act infantile, he's making his opponent look like the mature person. And the problem is, even if he leaves, everybody is going to think that Dillahunty is the more mature person. Like this is not helping. Acting like a child when you're supposed to be two adults having an actual debate about real life things. Like this is not a good look. Is just not a good look.
People as deranged lunatics who will self-terminate if you dare to question them.
how am I wrong, Matt?
Someone who misrepresents a quote from a debate where I said I wouldn't make a law about 9-year-olds having sex being legal with respect to the 9-year-olds, not that I was in any way in favor of it and that I was actually opposed to it, which I addressed during that debate. But moreover, this is not remotely an honest interaction on the front of whether or not secular humanism is valuable. Because this, when he presented his position here, has nothing to do with secular humanism. From the get-go, it's all about me. Matt thinks. I'm giving what Matt thinks. What Matt thinks. What Matt
Matt's
thinks.
position.
What Matt
It's
thinks.
Matt's position.
I
It's Matt's
came in
position.
with the Secular Humanist Manifesto. I came in with positions that aren't
They're your
just
positions.
that aren't merely my positions.
Oh, well, as long as multiple people hold the position, it
This
makes it
guy's not
valid.
serious, and I'm leaving. James, if you want a refund, you
Well,
let me
good
know.
day, sir. And I'll cover your refund, Mr.
Cool.
Matt.
He just said he'd cover my
I
refund.
would cover his refund.
No. Nope. Nope. No, I'm not going to dignify a debate with someone who walked in to trash talk people and be smug and all of the things that he's being right now. He's already said he will cover my expense. You don't have anything to worry about. This debate is over. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Jackass.
Did you call me a jackass, Matt? Well, you and your husband have a good day, Matt. Have a wonderful day, Matt. Yeah. Yeah. No, that was fine. I mean, if you're going to take a parting shot, I will too, Matt. Yeah. Yeah.
The thing is, my parting shot's correct.
No, your parting shot's correct. Oh man, tough crowd.
All right. That's enough of that. Okay. So, how do we respond? I want to respond charitably, right? And I think the charitable take is, and he's not alone in this, by the way. Andrew Wilson, he is not alone. A lot of people, and I really believe this is true. I think a lot of people really feel bullied by people on the other side. I think atheists in the past, they have done all these things, by the way. They have come across as very arrogant. They've come across as mean. They've come across as very insulting in their rhetoric. And I think a lot of people, like, secretly kind of want to do what Andrew Wilson did. But here's the reality, guys. Christians are called to take the high road. We are called, literally, the word Christian means little Christ or Christ followers. And so the question is, what does the Bible say? How are Christians supposed to act in these types of situations? Well, let's go to a couple scriptures. So here, let's go to, let me just make this a little larger for you guys. There Okay. Let's try this. Okay, so 1 Thessalonians 4, starting at verse 9, it says, "Now about your love for one another, we do not need to write to you, for you yourselves have been taught by God to love each other. And in fact, you do love all of God's family throughout Macedonia. Yet, we urge you, brothers and sisters, to do so more and more, and make it your ambition to lead a quiet life. You should mind your own business and work with your hands, just as we told you, so that your daily life may win the respect of outsiders, and so that you will not be dependent on anybody." Okay, so here's the question. Did what Wilson just did, that display, did that win the respect of outsiders? Right? Like if you were a person on the opposing side, like say you were a person that was on the fence, maybe you lean towards atheism, and then you have this opportunity to hear an argument for Christianity about how Christianity is the superior worldview, right? And what you see out of the Christian, you see immaturity, you see insults. He's calling people stupid, he's insulting their intelligence, he's being arrogant. Is this showing the love of Christ? First of all. Second of all, is this winning anybody's respect? Right? I'd have to say, I have to go with no on this one. All right. Second question. We go to 1 Peter chapter 2. And it's really interesting. So in the first epistle of Peter, he gives this analogy to the Christians that are suffering persecution, and they're suffering real persecution, right? Like this is not like somebody sent me a mean tweet on X, right? This is not somebody sent me an angry comment on Facebook, right? Like we're talking about actual persecution. And so Peter, he gives this analogy to the Christians that are being persecuted by Rome. He says, we are like the exiles. We are like the Jews when we were exiled in Babylon. And so he says to them in verse 11 in chapter 2, let me just make sure you can see this on your screen. Starting at verse 11, he says, "Dear friends, I urge you as foreigners and exiles to abstain from sinful desires, which wage war against your soul. Live such good lives among the pagans, that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day he visits us." So this is how Christians are supposed to act, right? What does the Apostle Peter say? Does he say, when the pagans, when they mistreat you, does he say that you're supposed to fight back and be childish and call them names and all that stuff? Like, what does he say? No, he says, I urge you as foreigners and exiles, first of all, to abstain from sexual desire, to abstain from sinful desires. And so he says, well, and you have to think about this. What is a sinful desire? Well, first of all, pride. To act arrogantly. To tooth for tooth and eye for eye. Right? And Jesus has something to say about this. Jesus says, you've heard it said, a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you. Right? And the I tell you is not that you're supposed to give it to them when they deserve it. It's actually that you're supposed to be forgiving and loving. But in verse 12, Peter, he takes it to the next level, And he says, live such good lives among the pagans that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God the day he visits us. And so Peter says we're supposed to live good lives among the pagans. Why? Because they're watching. That's why. And so Peter, he holds his people to a whole new level of accountability. And we see this throughout the first letter of Peter. Right? Like look at what he says in the beginning of chapter 2. He says, therefore, rid yourselves of all malice. Right? What is malice? Exactly what we saw on the screen. Giving it to somebody because we think it's going to feel good to give it to them. To give them back blow for blow. But that's not what Peter says. Peter says, rid yourself of all malice and all deceit, hypocrisy, envy, and slander of every kind. What did he do? Like half of his opening statement was just attacking his atheist prosecutor. And like pretty much everything in this list, malice, deceit, hypocrisy, maybe not envy, slander of every kind, all of that was displayed. And so we have to ask, what is this doing to our witness? Right? Are people more likely to come to Christ because you act like a jerk in public? Or are you more likely going to push people away from the kingdom? Right? Because sometimes being right isn't the point. Because if you're going to act like a jerk when you're right, you're not winning any souls that day. So Peter says, like newborn babies, crave spiritual milk, so that by it you may grow up in your salvation, now that you have tasted that the Lord is good. And so, other words, we're not supposed to be acting like immature children as Christians. Christians are expected. We are expected to be held to a higher level of accountability. And like this is inappropriate for a believer. We are supposed to be better than the sinners. And now I know that's uncomfortable, but that's what makes them unbelievers. They're sinners. Sinners are supposed to sin. That's what they do. Right? So like I would expect this kind of behavior from an unbeliever, but not from a Christian. Like this is not okay. And why is it not okay? Well, Peter actually tells us. He says, you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. And then he says, once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. And then he goes into verse 11, where he says, live such good lives among the pagans that they have nothing to attack you with. Right? Live such good lives among the pagans that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God. So we have to ask the question, when we display behavior of immaturity, who's going to glorify God because of that? Right? Like we have to ask ourselves these questions. Now, to be fair, this has been something that has been happening a lot lately. I would like to look at a debate that has been in the news quite a bit late. Well, not in the news. A debate that has been in kind of all over Christian the Christian world lately. So for those of you that may not know, probably I would say about a month ago, there was a debate that happened on Capturing Christianity's YouTube channel. And the debate was on the idea, do Muslims worship the same God as Christians? Actually, I'm just going to pull this over to my other screen here. There we go. Yeah, so the debate was, do Muslims worship the same God as the Christians? And after the debate, so basically on the Catholic side, Catholics actually believe this, right? So it blew up all over the internet. It became like this thing on X. It became this thing on social media, YouTube, all over the place. And people were just absolutely shocked. Like, how could anybody believe that Muslims worship the same God as Christians? And I didn't actually know why this was such a big deal, because the Catholics have been they've been very forthright about this, right? Like, part of Vatican II, they actually publicly declared this. They actually publicly declared that the Muslims worship and adore the same God as the Christians. And so, like, we're talking like 60 years this has been public knowledge. But anyway, so Capturing Christianity, he's a Catholic, and so he converted to Catholicism, I think, within the last couple years. And so he has this debate, and he calls in these Protestants, and they debate these Catholics, and so they have this debate, and the Protestant world loses its mind over this, right? Because it was like brand new, even though this has been public knowledge for 60 years. And so what happened in the debate, we have a gentleman, the guy on the top, Trent Doherty. I might be pronouncing his last name wrong. I apologize if I am. So Trent he's arguing on the Catholic side. And in the debate, he threatens to beat up he threatens to fist fight his Protestant opponent. and it just gets ridiculous. Like, it just gets absolutely ridiculous. It escalates. They start insulting one another. The Protestant guy accuses him of manifesting and being possessed by a demon and all this stuff, and it escalates and it escalates and it escalates. At one point, Trent offers $1,000 for his opponent to make a decent argument, and it just goes to a ridiculous level. And so it gets worse. So JP from JP Uncut, he's the guy in the bottom right corner. He invites Trent on to debate. JP is also a Protestant, so he invited him on to debate Cleave to Antiquity and JP Uncut as Protestants, and they were going to have the same debate on do Christians and Muslims worship the same God. And so Trent, as his partner, he brings on Danny, who is a bisexual atheist. And so he teams up with an atheist, and they're going to debate these Protestants on Islam. And that is where we go to a ridiculous place. So let's see how this debate goes.
So that's why I didn't just coming back to the Jews. I'm coming back to the Jew, to a specific Jew who is a counterexample to the inference pattern. But let me tell you two stories about real people. Okay,
stories. We only have 20 minutes left.
You got plenty of time.
Go ahead, just keep it short, Trent.
Okay, you tell me how much time I can take, and I'll start my clock.
No,
how much time?
Go ahead, Trent. Just try to
as
quick as you can.
No. I want to know. Do I have 3 minutes? Can I talk uninterrupted for 3 minutes?
No. No.
Sure, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. I am a former Christian apologist. Maybe I'm still a Christian apologist. I don't know. I don't like that term anymore because I don't like what shows up when you search for that on the internet. But I was a big advocate of the two-step approach, okay, where you would give arguments for the existence of God to get somebody to theism, and then you would give arguments for the deity of Christ to get them across the border to full-fledged Christianity, okay? That was what I was taught personally by Norman Geisler, who is my main first mentor. It's what Bill Craig has always done, J.P. Moreland, even Gary Habermas. All the people that taught me at Liberty University were all two-stage apologists. It was like, okay, first we hit you with the theistic arguments to show that there is a God, and then we hit you with the arguments for the resurrection of Jesus, show that Jesus is the full and complete revelation of that God, okay? Now, there are a lot of people who, in the process of that, will say, okay, well, like Tony Kennedy at one point is like, okay, all right, fine. You've convinced me God exists, but I'm just not, this Trinity stuff is contradiction, it's too complex, and the idea that Jesus could be both God and man, that's a contradiction, that just can't happen. But you got me on God, you absolutely got me, and then you work on them some more, you know, you really feed them the historical facts argument, and then they're like, oh, okay, maybe, okay, it's coherent, okay, fine, the incarnation, the Trinity, they're coherent, but I still don't think it's true. And then you're like, oh, but then you just keep, you know, read this, and then
Okay, so we start out pretty good, right? Like Trent is going, he's calm, he's cool, he's collected, he's telling a story, but he's also making a point, right? So this is how debates are supposed to be, right? You give an argument, you listen to the opponent's argument, you pick holes in the opponent's argument, they try and pick holes, and you defend your argument, right? This is how adults are supposed to treat one another, right? So far so good.
oh my God, it's like, it's actually true. And they come to believe Jesus. Okay. That person comes to believe that Jesus is the incarnation of the very God that they believed in from the theistic apologetics, even in the interim phase where they explicitly rejected the Trinity, rejected the incarnation, rejected the divinity of Christ. And this proves 1,000 times over that it is not the case that denying that Jesus is God, denying that God is triune, explicitly rejecting it makes you not a believer in the one true God. That is a proof 100 times over, 1,000 times over, maybe 10,000 times over for the individuals who actually did that. Okay, so I got 31 seconds left. I had students at Baylor University where I taught for a long time, and I taught honors freshmen, and they were intellectually very intelligent students. But so many of them believe it or not, believed that God was a physical being. They literally believed that God was a physical being, like the Godhead, not incarnate in Jesus. They had beliefs that absolutely contradicted the true nature of God, but they believed in the one true God. They absolutely did. And I got 3 seconds to spare. I'll yield balance of my time.
There you go. Do you mind if I have a couple of minutes to respond to that? Same amount of time is fine.
Yeah.
You cool with that, Danny?
Oh, yeah. Trent is hilarious, man. Trent,
okay. Thank you again for coming and doing this debate with us. I really appreciate it. This has been a good conversation so far. So I'll respond to basically what you just said about about Paul's statement about his zeal for God. So in the time that you took to explain that, you actually, I don't know if you noticed that you said this, but in his ignorance of Jesus Christ's divinity, he was worshiping the true God. So that was actually something that you said in your response there. At the beginning of this debate, we conceded that if someone is ignorant of the one true God, right, they can in some sense be worshiping the true God. The same way that maybe an atheist who is like, God, show me a sign or something, can actually be calling out to God, even if prior to that they are willfully rejecting the Trinity or whatever. They're in that sense, they're softening their heart and they're saying, okay, maybe God is real. I'm going to call out to him in that sense. But in your example, you were discussing Paul being ignorant. Well, what happens shortly after that? He's no longer ignorant. Christ reveals himself to him. Similarly, with the Superman argument, with Lois not understanding who oh, is this actually Superman or is this Clark Kent or whatever, that relies on her ignorance. But if he were to actually reveal himself to her, hey, this is me, this is Superman, I'm taking the glasses off, I'm putting the super suit on, this is me, I'm actually Superman. She was going to say, well, actually, no, the Superman I'm thinking of is actually that guy over there, and she points to Bizarro. We would know that they're not talking about the same individual. And I would also say that when I bring that up, so every other example within the scripture, so you bring up the one example with Paul, every other example of people who willfully reject God, it says that they're actually worshiping demons. And then the Romans 1 example that I brought that up very specifically because it explicitly states the exact opposite of what you're saying Paul states. So I'm going to read a little bit of a broader passage from Romans 1, and then I'll end my time here. So Romans 1:20, for since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power, divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made. So people are without excuse. They're without excuse for acknowledging that there is a creator because he's evident in nature. Okay? But, right, continuing on, for although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God nor gave thanks to him. But their thinking became futile and their foolish hearts were darkened. So referring to people who willfully reject God. So here are the actual ramifications for this type of theology if we continue on into the verses here. This is the ramifications, so pay attention to this, very important. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images to look like a mortal human being and birds and animals and reptiles. Therefore, God gave them over in the sinful desires of their hearts to sexual impurity for the degrading of their bodies with one another. So where does this type of willful rejection of the one true God, that you can only worship God in one specific, like if you're not worshiping the true God, you're worshiping a demon. So what happens when you worship these demons? Well, guess what? God gives you over to sexual impurity. And I think we can actually see the fruits of this type of theology on display here today, since you have teamed up with a bisexual atheist to defend your theology.
That's a piece of shit. That's a piece of shit move, you fucking piece of shit. Fuck you. I'm just saying. So disgusting. I cannot believe that I'm sitting here and I am seeing somebody who claims to be a Christian treat another human being with such absolute disrespect. You should be absolutely ashamed of yourself. Danny, well,
you're coming here to defend theology with an atheist that has his entire and now he's crashing out.
God have mercy on your soul.
Well,
God have mercy on your soul.
And now he's crashing
out.
Okay.
Bullshit move.
Well, we can piety signal and all of this type of stuff. But I think that is the fruit of your theology. Ultimately, at the end of the day.
All right. So many problems. Let's go back to the main camera. Okay. How do we respond to something like this? Charitably. Not gonna lie, this is hard to watch. So here, I almost think this is even worse than the previous one. Why is that? Because he's not even arguing with the atheist. We have a Protestant guy, cleaved to antiquity. He clearly, and he did take a shot, right? Like he clearly is insulting his interlocutor, which again is inappropriate. He's insulting his interlocutor, and the Catholic guy responds in the most fleshly way possible. And he starts dropping F-bombs. He gives him the finger. He starts cursing. Now, what do you notice? What do you notice about this whole thing? The guy that should be offended remains cool, calm, and collected. Watch what happens, right? Let's see. All right, Danny, the atheist guy, he's about to say something. So let's see what Danny has to say about this whole thing.
Pussy.
Let's go back to your verse. The verse, I agree with Trent. That verse undermines your whole point. The people that were given over, do they know God? Yes or no, Cleve?
The people that were given over, do they?
What did Danny just do? Danny didn't lose his temper. He remained calm. Why did he remain calm? Because he's in a debate. Right? He is able to keep in the forefront the target. Why? The target is not actually to beat Cleve to antiquity in the way that Cleve and antiquity is trying to beat him. Right? What is he doing? He is still in the debate trying to win over the audience. Why? Because in a debate, you're not trying to win over your interlocutor. You're not going to. You're not trying to convince them. What are you trying to do? You're trying to convince the audience. And that is exactly what's going on here. And now look at what Trent does.
Do they give God? No, they don't worship God. Actually, it says that.
No, the question isn't about worship. I'm asking, do they know God according to this passage?
Oh, sure. Do they know God? Yeah,
Yes.
they did not see fit to acknowledge God, but
Right.
they...
Now, do Muslims know God? Do Muslims know God?
Sure, but they reject him.
Okay, so they know God, but they reject him?
Absolutely.
What does that even mean? Right? Look, the point is that if they know God, then when they're talking about God, they're referring
They know,
to the God
they
that
know,
you know.
they know that Jesus Christ is, they know that Jesus, no, Trent's...
So do you see what just happened here? Trent logged off. So now his friend Danny has to go up against two Protestants in order to win the debate. And he does. Like, look at how long this video is. This is at the 48-minute mark. And it goes on till the hour and 11 minutes mark. And then Danny goes on to do another live stream with JP to answer his critics. And so like what's going on here? The atheist is the most mature person in the room. Right? Why? Now, this is a problem because what does our scripture say? Dear friends, I urge you as foreigners and exiles to abstain from sinful desires which wage war against your soul. Live such good lives among the pagans that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God the day he visits us. What's going on here? The atheist is actually living out the scripture better than both the Christians. Like, this is a problem. So, like, if I was Trent's pastor, or even Cleve to Antiquities pastor, we would be having a conversation. Why? Because you are representing Christ on a live stream, and you are acting worse than the pagans are. In fact, you're actually making them look good, because while you are losing your mind, you're losing your temper. What are the atheists doing? They're the ones that are coming out looking like they won the debate. And so they actually are acting more honorable than the Christians are. Meanwhile, the Christians are acting out in their flesh, losing their temper, cursing, swearing, demeaning people, calling them names, and all this stuff, and also trying to act self-righteous at the same time. Like, this is not okay. Like I said, if they were in my church, I'd be having a conversation with them, possibly enacting church discipline. Because this is totally inappropriate. This behavior is totally inappropriate. We're talking about adults, like in their 40s and 50s, and they're acting like children. Like, this is not okay, because you're making the church look bad. Nobody is going to look at Trent and think, I need to go out and I need to join the Roman Catholic Church. Like, nobody's going to think that after seeing the display that they just saw. And the problem is, I'm a Protestant. The Protestants are no better. Right? Like the Protestants are just as aggressive. They're just as mean. They're just as vindictive. And the problem is, like, you're not winning by doing this. We win by being Christ-like and displaying the fruit of the Spirit, right? What are the fruit of the Spirit? The fruit of the Spirit is love, peace, joy, patience, kindness, self-control. Like, were any of these things displayed in these debates? Like no. And like, I understand, I understand the temptation, okay? Like, I totally get it. There's a temptation to just let somebody have it and laugh at them. But the problem is, this is not Christ-like. This is in the flesh. And as Christians, we are called to a higher calling. We are called to represent Christ. And we are called to be an example of the way people should be acting. And it's a sad day when the unbeliever is more Christ-like than actual Christians. And so, like we need to totally reevaluate ourselves. Like we're not winning any souls by doing this. And so, like, I think pastorally, we need to be better than this. We need to actually display godly character, and we need to be able to show people the higher path. Right? Like we need to show people the way of the cross. Christians, whether you're Catholic, Orthodox, or Protestant, we are called to cruciform love. We are called to show people the way of the Lamb and to reject the way of the dragon. The way of the dragon is backbiting, it is aggressive, it is mean, it is vindictive, it's slanderous, it's all of these things. Right? What is the way of the Lamb? The way of the Lamb is cruciform love. How does God show his love to his people? Through crucifixion. Jesus is suffering for unbelievers. He's suffering for sinners. And when they insult him, he doesn't respond by insulting them back, even if it's true. Here's the thing. Jesus, he could have insulted the Romans. He could have insulted the religious leaders that were crucifying him and torturing him to death. And it would have been true, and it would have been lawful for him to do such a thing. But he didn't. What does he do? He responds by saying, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Now, there's nothing wrong with making an argument, right? And like, there's nothing wrong with presenting good apologetics, making good arguments. And I encourage everybody that's within the reach of my voice, please make good, strong arguments for the faith. But here's the thing. Giving somebody the finger, that's not an argument. Right? Like calling somebody stupid, like insulting people, cursing at people, acting childish, that's not an argument. In fact, the moment you do that, you've lost. Like, you've lost the argument. And so, Christians, we need to do better than this. We need to be outdoing the pagans in our conduct. Are we being honorable? Are we deserving honor? When people look at the way our enemies treat us, and when people look at the way we treat our enemies, who do they think are the most honorable? Right? Are we choosing the way of the dragon, which is what we saw on full display in both of these debates, or are we choosing the high road? Are we choosing the way of the Lamb? Are we making good arguments and being honorable? Or are we being dishonorable in order to be right? Because we need to make a decision. And I'm telling you right now, if you are not going to represent Christ correctly, you shouldn't be on YouTube. Like, quite frankly, you need to take your YouTube channel down. If you're going to be mean to people, if you were going to bully them, if you're going to online bully people, like, for honestly, for the sake of your own soul, you need to take your YouTube channel down. And why do I say that? I say that because of this verse. He says, "Dear friends, I urge you as foreigners and exiles to abstain from sinful desires which wage war against your soul." Like, this is really serious stuff. And it makes the church look really bad when the pagans live more honorable than we do. And so now I don't want to stress this too terribly much. But we need to learn to be honorable again. Like, we need to learn to take the high road. We need to learn to say no to the way of the dragon and to embrace the way of the Lamb. We are to follow Christ by cruciform love. In fact, that's actually what Peter says. Like, let's go back to the text. Look at what he says about Jesus in verse 22. He says, "He committed no sin, and not deceit was found in his mouth." When they hurled their insults at him, he did not retaliate. When he suffered, he made no threats. Instead, he entrusted himself to him who judges justly. He himself bore our sins in his body on the cross, so that we might die to sins and live for righteousness. By his wounds you have been healed, for you were like sheep going astray. But now you've returned to the shepherd and overseer of your soul. So he gives this analogy, and he says, be like Christ. When Christ was suffering, he didn't insult people, right? He didn't call people stupid. He didn't insult people. He didn't curse at people. He didn't swear at people. He died for them. He suffered for them, right? And look at what he says in chapter 3, verse 8. He says, "Finally, all of you," that's me and you, "all of you, be like-minded, be sympathetic, love one another, be compassionate and humble. Do not repay evil with evil or insult with insult. On the contrary, repay evil with blessing. Because to this you were called, so that you may inherit a blessing." We're actually called to be Christ-like. We're called to be honorable. And then he goes on in verse 13, and he says, "Who is going to harm you if you're eager for good? But even if you should suffer for what is right, you are blessed. Do not fear their threats. Do not be frightened, but in your hearts revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to anyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect." And this is the key point, you guys. This is what Christianity looks like. This is how we represent Christ. When you are on the debate stage and you're looking at the camera, you remember the words that Scripture actually says. Scripture does not give us permission to hurl back insult for insult and to be immature and to act like children. What does it say? It says, what does it say? It says, "In your hearts, revere Christ as Lord." In order to say Christ as Lord, that means you are not. He says, always means always, be prepared to give an answer to anyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. In other words, people, give good arguments. Give strong arguments. Win. Okay, you can win the debate by giving good arguments for your faith. Like that it is actually possible to do that. And then he says this, but do this when you give the arguments, but do this with gentleness and respect, keeping a clear conscience, so that those who speak maliciously against your good behavior in Christ may be ashamed of their slander. So, now here's the question we have to ask. When people slander the church, do we deserve it? Are people going to look at them when they slander Christians? Are people going to tell them, yeah, you're right, they are a bunch of hypocrites? Or when they slander you, are their hearers going to come to their defense because they're not charitable, because they're not honorable? Like this is the idea. We ought to be so honorable and so charitable that people are actually going to think they're the jerks. Right? Like that's actually what living the Christian life is supposed to do. The problem is when we're mean, when we're vindictive, and when we bully people, that's not honorable, and it is not lifting up the name of Christ, and God gets no glory from that. How does God get glory? Well, it shows us in verse 18. In verse 18, it says, "For Christ also suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, to bring you to God. He was put to death in the body, but made alive in the spirit. After being made alive, he went and made proclamation to the imprisoned spirits, to those who were disobedient long ago. God waited patiently in the days of Noah while the ark was being built. In it, only a few people, 8 in all, were saved through water. And this water symbolizes baptism that now saves you also. Not the removal of dirt from the body, but the pledge of a clear conscience towards God. It saves you by the resurrection of Jesus Christ, who has gone into heaven and is at God's right hand with angels, authorities, and powers in submission to him." So there's a lot I could talk about in this, because there's this portion of scripture has so much theology packed into it. But what's the main point? The main point is this: Christ also suffered once for sins. He descended into the place of the dead, fully dead. And then what happens? The resurrection. The resurrection is what saves us. And if we are going to be people of Christ, if we're going to be Christ followers, we ought to be living we ought to be living a life that embodies the resurrection. And if the non-Christians are spiritually dead, we shouldn't be acting like we're spiritually dead. We should actually be acting like we're alive, like we're mature, that we're righteous. All of these things, the fruit of the Spirit should be manifesting in our lives. And so I guess I just want to end just with this encouragement to you guys. Let's not do debates this way. Let's not give off this persona. Let's say no to the way of the dragon, and let's embrace the way of the Lamb. Let's embrace the cross, and let us take the position that Jesus took. Jesus is our example. We are to take the high road. We are to be more humble when we're threatened with arrogance. We are to be more charitable when we're being slandered and insulted. And so I just wanted to give you guys that encouragement. We're called to cruciform love. We're called to maturity. We're called to life. We are not called to represent Christ in the way that we saw in these debates. And so I guess just my pastoral response is, and I mean, like, I haven't been perfect in this, and so part of this is, I mean, part of this is just me weeping for myself. I don't want to turn into this. Like, I really, I do not want the internet to break me in the way that I become vindictive and insulting to the lost. And I want people to love God because of my conduct online. And so I just want to encourage you guys, let's embrace the way of the cross. Let us embrace cruciform love, and let us be honorable so that God gets glorified, and so that people will actually see that there is a God in heaven that is loving, that is honorable, and deserves people's worship. So with that, I think we're going to end it here. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you guys in the next video.